Anyone But You wastes no time in establishing its main premise, which is good because for the most part, this is a movie that wastes no time and moves along at a brisk pace, which is, I guess, unique for a romantic comedy. At first, I thought the high speed was a good thing. The movie is rarely boring, but something has to be said for moments of stillness and quiet in movies. And Anyone But You doesn't take time to reflect on things. It just focuses on its main plot, the boy girl love story between its two main characters, played by Sydney Sweeney and Glen Powell, which kicks off immediately as they meet at a coffee shop in the opening scene. Ultimately, how much you will enjoy Anyone But You depends on how much you like Sydney Sweeney and or Glen Powell. And thankfully, these two actors have a substantial amount of charisma, personality, and charm. And it's thanks to the strength of its two main leads that Anyone But You largely works and is frankly mostly a success. The other elements that makes Anyone But You work is the script, which is particularly well crafted, sharp, and witty, and there are frequently segments of dialogue that are quite remarkably brilliant. The movie isn't an over the top comedy movie. There isn't any vulgar dialogue, though there are quite a few adult oriented segments, including exposed breasts and men walking around barely covering their Johnson, which is somewhat surprising as the movie poster advertising gave me the impression that Anyone But You was a family friendly rom com type movie that plays it safe. But heck, shows how much I know about rom coms. I very rarely watch rom coms, but every once in a while I occasionally watch one, maybe once a year on average. And compared to all the rom coms I've watched, this is certainly one of the better ones. Anyone But You feels fresh and different to a lot of the rom coms I've watched previously. Also, another thing that makes Anyone But You feel fresh and unique is that there is absolutely no political lecturing in the movie. There is no political messaging or moral judgment cast upon you as a viewer. This is just a romantic comedy whose primary purpose is to entertain, uplift, and quite frankly, make you feel good. And overall, Anyone But You does make you feel good, largely thanks to the strength of its two lead actors, the relatability and realism of the dialogue, and the absence of overt and hidden political messaging. And heck, for a movie that is about a white male and a white woman starring together in a romantic relationship, it is not too surprising that this movie is definitely not a woke movie. The only thing that is surprising is the white male is not a meth head or a domestic abuser. And this movie was my first introduction to the actor Glen Powell, and he is quite charismatic and effective in his role. I don't think he is the next Tom Cruise, at least not yet, but at 37 years old, which is still quite young for a Hollywood actor, I do think Glen Powell does probably have the potential to hold a movie like an action flick on his own. Certainly a lot better chance than most younger actors these days, who generally seem utterly lifeless and totally devoid of charisma. Sydney Sweeney is great in her role. She's not particularly outstanding, but she does the best with what the script asks of her. If you've ever seen Euphoria, you know that Sydney Sweeney has incredible range and the ability to really bring out intense emotions when asked of her. Frankly, Sydney Sweeney was the main reason I was drawn to Anyone But You, for obvious reasons. A bit after watching Euphoria, I can confirm that this young lady is more than a pretty face, and pretty something else. When watching the American Eagle ad, I noticed that this woman has an incredibly and subtly immaculate way of making dialogue seem natural and authentic, which is why I ultimately decided to watch Anyone But You, even though I very rarely watch rom-coms. Apart from my or your fascination with Sydney Sweeney, I do think this rom-com is worth your time. If rom-coms are one of your preferred genres, or if you are just a big fan of one or both of these two leading stars. That said, if you're not into rom-coms or are not a particularly big fan of any of these two stars, I can't say that this movie is particularly brilliant or would be particularly worth your time. It's not like the elements of Anyone But You are bad. For the most part, this is a better than mediocre movie. But ultimately, how much you enjoy Anyone But You depends on your interest in the rom-com genre or your interest in Sydney Sweeney and old Glen Powell. Ultimately, I think Glen Powell and Sydney Sweeney are fine actors. And once more, I do think they have tremendous chemistry together, which is the biggest reason that Anyone But You works as a movie. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this review, hit like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it, and thank you.